We are glad you've joined us to hear this message from Center of Hope Victory Church. We have a vision to release the spirit of revival and to raise up and equip Holy Spirit-led believers to do the work of the ministry. We hope you enjoy the following message.
Well, this is one of those odd ones today where I knew what I wanted to preach on weeks ago. And I was going to build off of that, and instead of building off it, I kind of went back down, I don't want to say down the ladder. I don't know how to word it, but anyway. So what I decided on starting with, I'm actually going to finish with. And it's one of these things where I'm not saying this is what you have to believe. So if you disagree with something I say today, that's fine, because it's to me it's one that's not to show you exactly what the Bible says, but show how deep the meanings are in there. So many things that we've got, we read the words, we know what the words mean, but we find out, you know what? There's a lot more to it than just that one word. There's a lot of depth in it, and it can mean one thing to me. It might mean something different to you. Now, granted, it's got to be in line, but it doesn't mean because I see it a certain way, you have to see it exactly the same way. And you'll see, hopefully you'll see what I mean as I get through this. But, yeah. Now, part of it is that, I'm going to get to this again later too, but it's not as though in the Old Testament, that was God's plan A. Well, I guess that didn't work, so let's get a plan B for the New Testament. It's not plan A, plan B. It's all his plan. The Old Testament is his plan. So we can't say, well, the Old Testament is, that's part of his plan. It's not plan A, it's plan. That's it. Now, to start with, I'm going to have Claire come up and read Numbers 21, verses 4 to 9, because that's where I'm going to be starting.
Then they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to the ground of the land of Edom. And the soul of the people became very discouraged on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. "Why have you brought us up of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and our soul loathes for worthless bread." So the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of the people of Israel died. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he may take away the serpents from us." So Moses prayed for the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Make a fiery serpent, set it on a pole, and it shall be that everyone who is bitten, when he looks at it, shall live." So Moses made a bronze serpent and put it on a pole. And so it was, a serpent had bitten anyone. When he looked at the bronze serpent, he lived.
Leave that here for me. Thank you, Claire. Now, I think most of us know that story where the people of Israel, they complain, "Oh, what's going on, God? We don't want to be here." And God says, "Well, I'm going to send fiery serpents to set you off," and Moses is going to put the serpent on a pole. But that word serpent has got to be one of the most interesting words. To start with, some people don't interpret it as a serpent. It can be translated as a shining one. Not just a serpent, a shining one. Then you say, well, what's a shining one? And if you go back to Genesis, where the serpent speaks to Eve, that's the same word. Nachash, a shining one. Actually, that's what I'm saying. It's the depth. I'm not saying that, it's not a serpent, there is a serpent, it's not a snake. I'm just saying this is a depth that's in there. That it's Nachash, a shining one. And at the end it says the serpent will go on its belly and eat dust. Well, snakes don't eat dust. So how much symbolism is there? What is this serpent, this shining one that he's talking about in Genesis 1 and in this part? Because, again, it's a shining one. And what even gets more confusing, I didn't find this out till this morning I was looking, so I haven't got a lot on this one, but Numbers 21:8 says, make a fiery serpent. The word serpent isn't in the Hebrew. The word in Hebrew is seraph. Sound familiar? Isaiah's seraphim, it's the same word. So the Lord said to Moses, make a seraph and sit on a pole. Then we get to Moses put a bronze serpent on the pole, a bronze shining one. And what is even more, I found, again, just because I find Hebrew so fascinating, so deep, there is the word for Nachash, the serpent, the shining one. There is the word for brass. There's your shining one. There's the brass. Again, what does it mean? I'm not sure. But, I mean, that's the depth of it. Like, to me, that's fascinating. I want to find out more about what that means with the brass serpent. And some translations say copper. It doesn't really matter. It's still a metal. But a metal shining one or a metal snake. I mean, to me, the shining one makes more sense. I'm not saying it can't be a snake. It can't be a serpent. But to me, it's that shining one. But again, if you're confused about this yet, wait till we get deeper. Because the word for that word, Nachash, is actually a Hebrew letter. There it is. What does it look like? A snake. I just said it's a shining one. Here is the letter itself means a snake. That is the letter Nachash, which means a snake in the original pictographs. But that letter Nachash morphed into the letter Nun, which means life. Are we confused yet? Not to confuse, but to show the depth of these letters. It's a shining one. It's life. So in a way, the shining one, like the shining one and the brass, are somehow intertwined. They're not, in my mind, they can't be two totally different things. There's a connection between the shining one and the copper or the brass. The shining one can be a promise. Okay, that word, that letter, means a promise or a covenant. So you've got the shining one with a covenant. What did he hold up on this thing, on the pole? A brass serpent, a shining one with a covenant. Like I said, I'm not saying that this is, I've got all the answers, but to me, there's just so much, there's so depth there to make me think, my goodness, what is really going on here? It's not just holding up a brass serpent and looking at it and say, okay, God heals them. There's a lot more depth to it than that. And it's not just depth here. It comes up later on, too, as depth. Okay, again, because this, I knew when I started this I was going to be confused because I was here and here and here and here and here and here and trying to get it in order so it didn't get too confusing. But, okay, to that, Nachash morphs into the letter Nun, which means life. So in a way, they were looking at life. The commentators I've read said he held it up on a serpent, so they would have to gaze up, and as they gazed up, they would be gazing up to God. I mean, my first thought was, how high is this pole? If the people that are 100 yards away are looking up towards God, I mean, how high is that pole got to be to make them gaze up towards God? But if they're gazing upon a shining one with a promise, they're looking up to life. They're not looking up, again, I'm not saying it's not a serpent on a pole. I'm just saying this is how I see it and the way God's speaking to me. It wasn't a God, they are looking up to the shining one that have a covenant. Life with a covenant. That's what they were looking up to. And they realized God had given them a covenant. I mean, the whole Bible's a covenant to them. So they saw the covenant when they looked up and said, okay, I can see that covenant. I'm going to be healed. Another one that said, behold. Make sure I got these right. They said they beheld. the serpent. That's the word behold. The first word, so the first letter, remember it goes backwards. It doesn't go back, it goes opposite to the way we read. The first letter, nun, means life. The second letter, bet, means a house. The third letter, tet, means surround. So when they beheld it, there was life in their house surrounded. So when they're beholding it, beholding this shining one, life was surrounding their house. I mean, I look at some of these, I just shake my head and say, how much depth can there be to some of these words? You know, it's not as though they just looked up and said, okay, I'm looking up, we're good. They didn't say they looked up, they beheld it. And that beheld, again, in my mind, means life surrounded their house. What life? The life of looking up the shining one that had the covenant with it. So life was in that shining one, and as they beheld it, it surrounded their house to protect them. And what happened to the ones who beheld the serpent? They were healed. Yeah. So by beholding, they were looking to surround their house with life. That's what they were thinking. If I beheld it, I will surround my house with life. Now, if we go up to John 3:14, Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man must be lifted up. Yes. In that original story, they sinned. They were bitten by snakes, and they looked at the shining one. I have been, in a sense, bitten by sin. So what do I have to do? I have to look up to the shining one. Well, where do I get this idea that Jesus is the shining one? Because that's what the Old Testament is. It was a shining one with a promise, right? So how is Jesus the shining one? Well, if you want to look to Revelation 1:16, his countenance was the sun shineth in his strength. What happened to the transfiguration? He was the shining one. Yeah. I mean, I read some of this stuff, and I think, my goodness. Either some really, really smart person put this all together, which I have my doubts, or God put it together. Because nobody could think up all these things and put them all together this way. So it's the way the Hebrews looked up at the shining one on their pole. I have to look up at the shining one on the cross, Jesus. He's the shining one with the promise, the covenant. He has a covenant with me that if I will turn to him, I'll be saved. That's a covenant. I look to him for that the shining one with a covenant. And the Hebrew word for lifted up means to make a demand upon. It's not just lifting, it's to make a demand upon. So the shining one, in a way, is making demand upon me to look at him. It's not just a matter of, I'll look on him. He's putting a demand on me to look upon him for salvation. It's a demand. Jesus makes a demand on us to look to him. It's not a, gee, should I or shouldn't I? He's making a demand. This is the way it should be. Now, this is where I won't say confused, but I really got over my head, I think. I look at some of this sometimes. I honestly think sometimes, am I reading too much into some of this? But then I think it just makes too much sense to me that I'm going to keep going. 3 times in the New Testament, the disciples are instructed to take up their cross. Take up his cross and take up your cross. Take up your cross and follow me. I mean, what is that? Does that mean I got to make a cross and carry it? I remember reading about this gentleman that made a cross and carried it across continents and countries. I don't think that's what it means when I'm told to pick up my cross and carry it. In Mark 16, it says, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. Now, one of the letters in the Hebrew alphabet, Tav, the last one, means a covenant or a promise. That's what it looks like. What does that look like? A cross. I mean, his promise is in the shape of a cross. Like I said, who can think all this up? To me, it's way past thinking it up. It's got to be planned from beginning to end, every single letter. And again, I'm sure some of you disagree on this one, but I feel every single letter, especially in the Old Testament, is intentionally placed where it should be and made in the shape it's supposed to be. The covenant, the letter Tav, the promise, the covenant, is a cross. Now, granted, that's not the way they write it now, but in the original pictures, that's what it was. Now, the word cross, how many times in the Old Testament do you think the word cross appears? You want to guess? 0. The word cross does not appear in the Old Testament. Now, since I love to look at Hebrew, I think, okay, what does it mean? What does the cross mean in Hebrew? Well, you can't because it's not in the Old Testament. But somebody a while ago, I'm not sure who it was, it might have been Brenda, I'm not sure, gave me a Hebrew New Testament. So I carefully went to the Hebrew New Testament, and again, I don't read Hebrew. I've got to look at all these letters and go back and forth and figure out which one of these words meant cross. And the word they used to mean cross in the New Testament is that word. And it is a tzada, which means a path, a lamed, which means a shepherd's staff, and bet, which means a house. So the cross is the path, the shepherd's staff leads home. And again, am I reading too much into this? I don't think so, but you might, and that's fine. But the cross is the path, the shepherd's staff leads home. So when Jesus was on the cross, he was taking the path that his shepherd's staff was leading him home. When I look upon the cross, I am looking towards that path that the shepherd's staff has put before me that's going to lead me home. That's what the cross is. So when I look at the cross, I think when it says to take up my cross and follow him, I take that to mean I'm supposed to take the path that his staff is leading me to home. Again, that's what picking up the cross and picking up my cross means to me. He has put a path before me, not just any path. He's put a path that his shepherd's staff, and what does the shepherd do with his staff? He leads the sheep where he wants them to go. He guides them. So the path is going to guide me home. That's my idea of what the cross is. Bearing my cross, carrying his cross. To find that way to follow the path that he is guiding me home. Now, shepherds, now if you go to the Midwest in States, it's nice and flat. I remember going across the prairies. I think I see a bridge about 100 miles ahead here. I think we're okay. But in Israel, it's not like that. It's rough. It's rugged. There's mountains. It's not a pleasant land to be traveling in. In cities it's fine, but in other countries, it's not the most pleasant place to be wandering around. So I need that shepherd's staff guiding my path. Does that mean it's going to be a simple path? Not likely. Always. The paths are rough. Those sheep had a hard time sometimes going where the shepherd wanted to go. Just because I'm following the path that God's put me on doesn't mean, like that old, I don't remember. Okay, 60s people, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, everybody. No, it's not going to be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Is it going to take me home? No. That's the important thing. His path will take me home. That's why it's important that I follow his path. Why it's important I take up my cross and bear it every day. Again, not bear it as though it's, oh my goodness, I got this heavy cross, I've got to bear it. I'm following the path he's put before me. When I was small, my parents told me, this is what I want you to do, this is where I want you to go, and we did. Because I trusted them. I've got to trust God the same way. This is the path I put before you, Ray. It might not be great in your eyes, but it's a path I need you to follow. Why do we have to go through some of this stuff? I don't know. But it's the path he's given me to follow. I can't argue with him. Well, I can. Not going to do me any good. But if he's put a path before me, I've got to say, God, I trust you. I know you. I'm going to carry my cross. I'm going to pick up that path you put before me and follow it as best as I can. But that cross, now the cross that we see Jesus on, like is lifted up, we look upon. I mean, I often think, why is it so grotesque? I mean, how many of you watched what's the one Mel Gibson did? The Passion. How many watched The Passion? Oh, I couldn't watch parts of it. I think this is grotesque. Not just before it was grotesque. It was abhorrent. It was reviling. Why did it have to be that way? When I look at it, I see an abhorrent, a reviling, a grotesque situation. Well, when God looks at my sin, what does he see? He sees something grotesque, reviling, and abhorrent. What I see hanging on the cross, the abhorrence, he sees in me. You know, it illuminates how bad our sin is. Like we think, oh, I'd sinned, God, please forgive me. It's all good now. God, I mean, it is almost that simple, yes. But God looks at our sin, and it's not just, oh, he sinned. I mean, think about it. What he sees in my sin, it makes me want to fall on my knees and say, God, I've sinned. Not like, God, I've sinned. Like it's, God, I've sinned against you. Now, I can't remember who said this, but they said, God, I've sinned against you and you, David. You know, he said, God, I've sinned against you. You know, all the stuff he did, he said, God, I've sinned against you. You know, we've got to understand that the sins in God's eyes are abhorrent. He doesn't want to look on them. That's why we have to go to him. Now, when Jesus was in the garden, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, in the garden, Jesus said, if you can, God, let this cup pass from me. I mean, he looked ahead. He's God. He says, I don't want to, basically, again, the way I'm reading, he's saying, God, I don't want to do this. But if it's the only way, I will. If he didn't want to do it, how bad must it have been? I mean, he looked ahead and saw this and said, God, there's got to be another way. Isn't there another way? God said, nope. This is the only way. And I look at it because of what I've done. Because of what I've done, that's what Jesus had to do. And he's saying there's got to be another way. God says, no, that's it. It's the only way we can do it. But he was willing. Why was he willing? Because he loved me. Again, I'm using me. You can put yourselves in it, but he did it because he loves me so much. He looked and said, you know what? That guy's messed up. He's messed up a lot. He's probably going to mess up some more. But you know what? I still love him. I'm still going to go to the cross because of him. And again, how God, again, in a way, I don't know if it's in a way or actually, but when Jesus was there, how many of us did he, I don't want to say physically see, but when he was going through all this, did he see me? Like I know he saw the world, but did he see me and my sins? Or did he see sins generally? I don't know. But I think if he saw my sins, like did he see every one of us? Like how many people did he, in that time, and again, God's at a time, so I know it's possible, but I like to think he saw me and my sin. He saw Jen and her sins. He saw Ralph and his sins. He saw Bert and his sins. He says, you know what? I see all those people. I see they've messed up, but I'm still going. I'm still going to go to the cross because I love them so, so very much. He was willing to do it because he loved us. I heard it once said, only a perfect person can get to heaven. Not much hope for me, is there? Don't nod your heads, please. No, Only a perfect person gets to heaven. So who's the only one that can get to heaven? Jesus. But I can stand under his perfection. Under him, I'm perfect. I know you can look at me and say, I don't know about that. But in God's eyes, under Jesus, I am perfect. I have no sin. I have nothing. I can spend eternity with God. Where was I going with this? So we talk about the cross, and for a lot of people it's just foolishness. But again, back to this. Not Old Testament's not plan A, New Testament plan B. The Old Testament had all these sacrifices they had to do. All these sacrifices. Every year, multiple times a year, they would go in, they would do a sacrifice. The sin was never covered. It was covered partially, but never totally. And the word for sin is there. Chet, which means a tent wall. Hang on. Tet, which means to surround, and aleph to mean God. And then it's either, there's two ways they write it. Either that, which means, that's the top, which means a promise, or that, which means praise. So sin is a tent wall that surrounds us from praising God for finding his promise. Sin's not just something bad we do. Sin is the obstruction that keeps us away from God. We can't approach him with sin. It just doesn't work. Sacrifice is supposed to be perfect. Well, think about it for a minute. How many of those lambs were perfect in the Old Testament? None of them were perfect. I mean, all of them had some blemish in them, but they were supposed to find the perfect lamb. They couldn't. They did the best they could. And that's what I think the Old Testament was supposed to show us. There's no way we can do it. I can't do it. I can't be good enough to get God's approval, grace. I can't do it. There's only one thing and one thing only I can do. And that's look on his cross, like they looked up at the shining one with the promise. They looked upon him. I looked upon Jesus on the cross. Say, Jesus, I got nothing. Not I can do a little bit. I got nothing. God, I got nothing. Everything that gets me to heaven is in you. There's nothing in me. I've got to look to that cross daily. I've got to look at that path he's put on me to walk daily. I've got to look to him daily because I have to realize as soon as I say, God, I've done this, I've missed the boat. Yes, he wants us to do good. Sure, he wants us to do good. I can say, God, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this, and I know you enjoy it. I know it's good for me. But when it comes to the cross and eternal life, I got nothing. I can only look to Jesus on the cross, the shining one with the promise. That's where my salvation lies. Nowhere else. Nothing that I've done, nothing I'm going to do, not in my good works. It's because he's on the cross, and I can look to that shining one with the promise on the cross. Say, God, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this message. For more information about Center of Hope Victory Church, please visit centerofhopevictory.com.